In this video, I'm going to walk you through the very basics of posting data through a form using our API. So I'm inside of contacts, I'm inside of forms, I'm going to create a new form, and all I'm going to do is put on the first name, last name, and email, just for now, just really simple, okay? And I'm just going to save it, and let's just call this API demo. Now, once you've added the fields that you want to the form and you've saved it, you're going to get some integration instructions. And when you click on the integration instructions and you click on API integration, it's going to give you a link, and you can click on this and it's going to create some API docs specifically for that form. Now, that's also going to be inside of, again, contacts forms here. The little link to the side does exactly the same thing. Brings up the same information, and you can click on that and it'll bring up the API docs. Now, in those API docs, first of all, it says all API requests must be made over HTTPS, which is very normal, so it's secure. Next thing is, if it gives you a 200 OK, everything worked as expected. If it's a 400, then it's usually some kind of authorization error. So it could be the request was unacceptable, often like a missing parameter, or no valid key provided, or parameters were valid but the request failed, or the API key doesn't have permission for this particular request, or the requested resource doesn't exist. So you try and post to a link that doesn't exist, you might get a 404. Then 500 errors will be server errors. Okay, so what we're really looking for is a 200 error. Sorry, a 200 response, which will be fantastic. Now, if I click on Create Contact, I'm going to leave this open for a minute. I'm going to jump back over here, and purely for demonstration purposes, I am going to go to Automations, create a brand new automation, and I'm going to just go to the let it load, Data Services, and Custom API. So this is the custom API step in our flow builder, and you can use it to do post, get, put, and delete. And I'll talk you through the basics of post and get first. In simple terms, if you want to create something, it's a post. If you want to get some information, you want to retrieve some information, it's a get. If you want to update something, it's a put. And if you want to delete something, it's a delete. So we're going to be creating a new contact through this form, so it's a post. And you can see here, post, retrieve is a get, update is a put, and delete is a delete. Okay, so let's do this now. I'm going to take this URL, copy it, and you'll notice it says app.domainname.com or .co /API/input/6 characters /contact followed by $public_key equals, and then I don't know how many characters it is, but an alphanumeric code at the end, which is the key. So I'm just going to copy that. That is the URL that we are posting to. And if I dive back in here, the API webhook URL is here. So we're putting information through a form. We're adding contacts. We're posting. We're creating. And we can see that right here, post. I want to create a contact. I need to post. So I'll post. And now you can actually use variables, so variable allows you to choose any of the global variables or merge fields from throughout the platform, or custom allows you to enter the key name and the value, or if you prefer to do things the dev way, so to speak, you've then got the ability to write your own JSON body. Okay, so I prefer to do this, but I'm going to try and keep it really simple and show you both ways. Now, diving back over here again, we can see this is the field, this is the key, so first name. So I'm trying to copy that, and I can actually go to variable, and I can say first name. Okay, so it actually pulls that information through. Or I could choose custom, and I could just paste that first name, and I could choose the value. So this is the way I'm going to do it. I'm going to do this first name, and then we're going to say Bob, last name, and we're going to say Marley, and then email.value. Now you can use email.value, or you can just use email. Both of them work. Okay, so I'll do that. I'm just going to say bob@marley.com. All right, so what have we done so far? Well, we want to create a contact through this form. The way we're doing that is posting to this URL. So all I've done is I've taken the URL, added it to the top. We're posting, and then I'm choosing no code, and I'm just choosing the specific parameter names and then the values that I want to pass through. Okay, so this is really, really straightforward, and I can actually just hit test now. Let's just choose, I've got a couple of sample contacts I can use. Submit, and we should get there we go, success true. So what does this say? Well, success, it was true, it worked. So that's what we want to see. If it says success false, something went wrong. Then it says the data, page 1, contact ID, first name is Bob, last name is Marley, the contact ID token is this, and then the ID is this. Okay, so it worked. And if I hit cancel now, I can just save it so I can come back to this later. I'll just save this and I'll just call it API demo, just so we've got it. And I'll go to the contacts on this account, and you'll see Bob Marley has been created. And if we look at forms, you can see it says created from form API demo, and we can actually see the information that we pushed through there. Now, by the looks of things, the email hasn't come through. You can see there the email is not showing, and yet here it is. So there's no email showing in the form, but there is an email showing here. And that's down to the fact that in the form, the email field is email. And then on the API side of things, I used email.value, I think. Yeah, see? Now if I get rid of this and just use email, and let's do bob to marley to marley2.com, and then let's just do test again. Any contact, doesn't matter. We've got ourselves another Bob to Marley2, fantastic. And if we save this and come out and go back to contacts again, you will see we've now got a second contact that's gone through that form. And if we look at the form this time, you'll see we've got the email in there. And the reason we've got that is because I used email, not email.value. Okay, so email and email.value both filled down here, but the actual field I dragged on was the name was email. That's the reason why it produced that. So that's just a couple of basic things so that you understand the basics of adding contacts via API. So that means that what you could do is you could just create your own custom HTML forms and then submit them through our form builder. So if you want to get really complex, you could have your own forms in an entirely another platform. And when those forms are submitted, they could then be, submit the data into the SalesRocket platform. And, that it's much easier just to embed a JavaScript snippet to put our forms there. But if you want to put your own forms together, you can put your own forms together, and you can post the data through our form endpoint, and you can see how easy that is to achieve. If you want to pass contacts between accounts, so let's say that you have got 2 SalesRocket accounts, and you want to pass contacts between those 2 different accounts, you can use the API, create a form in the receiving account, add all the fields for the information that you want to bring across, and do exactly what I just did. Okay, and I just did first name, last name, and email, but if I have added additional things, so let me just go back to the form again. Let me get rid of these API. Well, actually, I'll keep them, and I'll show you what happens. in the API demo, I'm going to add in a phone number field, and I'm going to add in a text field. And in the settings here, I can go to this text field, go to the field name, and it's called text field. Okay, so you can write whatever you want in the label. But the field name is actually text field. All right, so I'll go ahead and I'll save that. And I'll save that. And bearing in mind, if you don't pass information, it won't work. So if you pass the first name, email, phone number, and label, but you don't pass the last name, it's not going to work because these are all required fields. So if you know that you want to pass information most of the time, not all the time, then you need to go into each one and change the validation, take the required off, and that way then if you've got a missing field for a specific contact, it'll still submit the form but just with the available information. Okay, so now we've got this. Let's just go ahead and save it now, and we'll save that. And if we come back over here, this first name, last name, email value, if I just refresh that now, because we've added more fields, we've now got those additional fields. And you can see I made the first name so it's not required, and you can see it says required no, whereas the others all are. All right, now let's just take that and do exactly the same thing with the API step. So we'll jump back over here, we'll go to automations again, and we'll use that custom API step. So we've got first name, last name, email. I'm just going to add, what was it, phone number and text field, I think it was. So let's do phone, and let's do text field, and you can check that inside the API docs. So you can use phone or phone.value, and then you can use text field. Okay, so let's do completely different names now so you can see it. Okay, so we've got Fred Flintstone, all right, so we've got ourselves a very basic set of information. I'm going to just click on test. I'm going to push the information through again, and we should get a success. Wonderful, it's worked. And if we just save this, we can come back to it, publish that, just so I've saved it. And if I go and look at contacts, I'll now have a Fred Flintstone in there. There we go. So that's how the API works to a very basic level. Now, let's look at it from an automation standpoint. Let's say that you want to do something, you want to trigger. So when something happens, then you want to pass across specific information. So for example, if somebody fills in a form in this account, you want to pass information across to your second account. So this would be form submission. And obviously you'd choose which form. Okay, so you'd choose a form submission. And when a form is submitted, you would then submit this second form, which could be in the secondary account. Okay, so this is in this account, this is in another account. Now I've done it all inside the same account, but I'm just showing you. Now in here, if I wanted to pass across specific information from this form, let me just go to, I might have to just save this and come back. Let me go to forms. What's that demo form? Okay, that's fine. So let's go to this API demo. I'm going to get rid of these two fields. Great. And I'm going to save that. And basically what's happened is that the this API demo, first name, last name, email, is now the same as this demo form. First name, last name, email. So imagine that this API demo is in a separate sub-account. Okay, and imagine that this demo form is right here. So I've got the API docs from the second account, and this is the account that I'm passing the information to, and this is where the first form is going to be submitted. Okay, so in the automation, I'm saying when the demo form is submitted, in the API, which in this would be the second account, okay, so I'm passing contacts between accounts, then I want to pass across this information. Now, obviously I can't type it out and manually change it for each person. So what we do instead is we use variables. And I can click here, I can actually go all the way down, and I can find system user flow. All right, I have to save it first. Do I have that correct form in there? No, that's why. Okay, demo form, update. So now, and again, I might have to just save this and refresh it. No, there we go. Form, demo form, first name. Add a variable. Last name. And finally, email. So here what I'm doing is I'm taking the parameters from form 1 and I'm pushing them through form 2. Now, I don't actually need to go and search for all the way down here this first name here. I could just use contact first name, contact last name. But if I need to pass across specific information from a form, like generic fields, like text fields, numerical fields, things that aren't going to be in the contact profile, that's where this information is going to be found. Okay, and so what I've done there is I'm just passing the information from form 1 through form 2, and I can save it. And now what's going to happen is, if we imagine that this form, demo form, is in this account, and this API form is in a separate sub account, whenever that form is submitted, the information is now going to be passed across to a second sub account as well. And the whole point there being that you're able to easily copy contacts between accounts. Okay, now if I wanted to, I could also manually pass contacts between accounts. So let's just take this form submission trigger off. And if I want to just add specific contacts to this, I could choose variable, 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 contact, first name, contact, last name, contact, email, and all I'm doing is taking these parameters and just making these lowercase on the very first letter. And I can click on save. And now I've got a way of manually adding people to a flow. And when they're added to a flow, they'd automatically submit this form with their first name, last name, and email from this account. And if this form was in, from a separate account, then I will be passing information between accounts. And that's just one very small example of what you can achieve with APIs. So that's just posting information through a form. And that can be really, really useful. So let's say that you white label our platform and you want to take the information from sub accounts up to your main account, or you want to pass stuff from your main account down to sub accounts. You can do it that way. That's just one simple way that it can be done. Now, you can get a lot more complex than this, but this just shows you the basics as to how to post information through a form. Now, you can also retrieve information. So you're not going to be able to retrieve information until the information actually exists. But you will see that you can then retrieve information through the form. You just need to know their contact ID. Okay, similarly, you can update contacts. So if you've got their contact ID, you can actually update the information on their contact profile, or you can just delete a contact. Now, inside of here, to just show you this, the HTTP method, you can do post or you can do get. Okay, and they're always sent as HTTPS, not HTTP. You can then, in the header data, if you need to use put or delete, then you want to use x-request-method, and you can do put to update information, or you can use delete if you need to delete anything. And then you can also, if you need to use gets, just use the get, and you don't need to add in this X request method. So that's kind of the basics as to how to push information through a form. But on top of that, we also then have the full API docs, which are more in depth, and it's really meant for developers or people that understand APIs. If I go to www.myapidocs.com, then you see all of the different parts of the platform that you can access via the API, as well as how to actually pass your public and private keys. Now, you can do it through a bearer token, and you can do it that way. I much prefer using this. Option 2 is a way to pass public and private keys and be able to perform functions using these APIs. So if you want to get certain contacts, for example, in the database, in contacts, if you want to get the detail for one contact, you can do that. If you want to get a list of contacts, you can do that. If you want to see the activity log, you can do that. You want to see the call log, the login log, the opportunity list, all of that can be found there through getting the information. Okay. You want to look at, let's say, pipelines, and you want to go to a specific pipeline board and get the list that's on the board. You can do that. So there's an awful lot that can be done via API, and we use all of the APIs here the same as you do. So when you're clicking on a button in the platform, what's happening is that we are using these APIs to then affect change inside the platform. So we're using exactly the same APIs that you are. The difference is when you actually log into the platform, we're then obviously using your public and private key because you've just logged in. And this is just a good walkthrough for you, so you can see the basics as to how to use the API, and so that you can see the basics as to how to add a public key to the end. So it's always question mark, then public underscore key equals, and then to add the private key as well, you'd add private underscore key equals, and you just go and get your private key. Now your private keys and your public keys are all going to be in settings, security, access keys. So settings, security, access keys. In here you can create your own access keys. You can say access to the current system. You can say what they're assigned to, and you can choose the role. Okay, and I can click on save. I generate these access keys. There's the public key, and there's the private key. Okay, and now I've shown you that you could actually use those public and private keys to do things to this specific demo account. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to delete that so that you can't. Okay, but that just gives you a full understanding as to how to push information through forms, how to create access keys, how to add them to the end of URLs, where the full API docs are, www.myapidocs.com, and also how you can push information through a form, which is going to be the primary use case for most people.